Right now, as you're watching this video, you're breathing in thousands of plastic particles. In fact, you just inhaled around 16 of them in the time it took me to say this sentence. But here's a truly shocking part. These microplastic invaders are already inside your brain, your heart, and even your blood. And scientists are discovering they might be causing serious harm to your health. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Dr. Zaid Fadul, and today we're diving deep into one of the most pressing health threats of our time, microplastics. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what these particles are doing to your body and, most importantly, what you can do to protect yourself and your family. Let's start with the basics. Microplastics are tiny pieces of plastic smaller than 5 millimeters. That's about the size of a sesame seed. But many of the particles we're most concerned about are much smaller. Some are so tiny that thousands of them could fit across the width of a human hair. These nanoparticles come from two main sources. First, there are primary microplastics. These are intentionally made small, like the microbeads that used to be in face scrubs and toothpaste. The good news is that many countries have banned these from cosmetics. But the bigger problem is secondary microplastics. These form when large plastic items break down over time. And here's where it gets concerning. The biggest single source is actually your car tires. Every time you drive, tiny rubber particles wear off and become airborne. Then there's synthetic clothing. Every time you wash a fleece jacket, it releases up to 250,000 plastic fibers into the water system. But it doesn't stop there. Road paint, fishing nets, plastic bags breaking down in landfills, and even the plastic furniture in your home are constantly shedding microplastic particles. Now let's talk about how these particles are getting into your body, because the numbers might shock you. Scientists estimate that the average person consumes between 78,000 and 211,000 microplastic particles every year. And that's considered a conservative estimate. Bottled water is your biggest liquid source of exposure. Studies show bottled water contains an average of 94 particles per liter, compared to just 4 particles per liter in tap water. That means if you drink only bottled water, you're consuming 90,000 more plastic particles per year than someone who drinks tap water. But here's something that might surprise you. Beer comes in second at 32 particles per liter. And if you're a tea lover, be careful with plastic tea bags. A single bag can release 12 billion microplastic particles when you pour hot water over it. Your food could be contaminated too. A recent study found that about 99% of seafood samples contain microplastics. If you eat mussels, you're more likely definitely eating plastic. But it's not just seafood. Microplastics have been found in honey, sugar, fruits, vegetables, and even meat. Here's something particularly concerning. Researchers suspect that meat might be one of the highest sources of microplastic consumption because of how plastic contamination concentrates as it moves up the food chain. Plastic contaminated water is used to irrigate crops. Those crops are fed to livestock, and then that livestock manure goes back onto the fields, creating a cycle that concentrates plastic particles more and more. Now for the part that should really concern you. What these particles are actually doing inside your body. And the evidence is mounting that the effects are really serious. Let's start with your heart. A landmark study linked in the description followed hundreds of patients who had surgery to clear blocked arteries. The researchers found microplastics in nearly 60% of patients' arterial plaques. But here's the shocking part. Patients with plastic in their arteries had a 4.5 times higher risk of heart attack, stroke, or death over the next few years. Another study found that stroke survivors had 51 times higher concentration of microplastics in their arterial plaque compared to people without plastic particles. This isn't just correlation, this is evidence of a direct link between plastic particles and life-threatening cardiovascular events. Your brain is also under attack. Recent studies have found that microplastics accumulate in human brain tissue at higher concentrations than in any other organ. Even more concerning, people with dementia had higher levels of plastic in their brains than healthy individuals. These particles can cross the blood-brain barrier and get directly into brain tissue. Once there, they cause inflammation and oxidative stress, which can damage neurons and disrupt normal brain function. Please check out my video on inflammation and ways to combat it. The reproductive system is also being affected. Studies have found that microplastics in testicular tissue in men with higher levels had lower sperm counts and poorer sperm quality. For women, plastic particles have been detected in follicular fluid and may interfere with egg development. But here's what's really happening at the cellular level. Microplastics cause something called oxidative stress. This means they trigger the production of harmful molecules called free radicals that damage your DNA, proteins, and cell membranes. This damage can lead to cancer, accelerate aging, and disrupts normal cellular functions throughout your body. The particles also trigger chronic inflammation as your immune system tries to attack these foreign invaders. But since your body can't break down or eliminate plastic, this inflammatory response literally never stops, potentially contributing to autoimmune diseases and other chronic health problems. I know this information can be overwhelming, and you might be feeling anxious right now. I know I am. That's completely normal. But here's what I want you to understand. Awareness without action is just anxiety, and anxiety itself can harm your health. Health agencies currently state that there's no credible evidence showing that current levels of microplastic exposure pose an immediate health threat. However, this doesn't mean we should just ignore the issue. The research is rapidly evolving, and many of the studies I've shared with you are very recent. What we do know is concerning enough to take reasonable precautions, which I do in my own home. Remember, we're dealing with a relatively new phenomenon. Widespread microplastic pollution has really only occurred over the last few decades. Long-term health studies take time, but the early evidence suggests we should be taking this really seriously. The key is to focus on what you can control rather than worrying about what you can't. You can't eliminate microplastic exposure completely. They're literally everywhere in our environment. But you can significantly reduce your exposure through practical changes. Here's my recommendation. Take this seriously, but don't let it consume your life. Make reasonable changes that fit your lifestyle and your budget. Every reduction in exposure counts, even if it's not perfect. Number 1, avoid single-use plastics. Use reusable water bottles, cups, shopping bags, and utensils made from materials like glass, stainless steel, or wood instead of plastic versions. 2, drink filtered tap water. Choose tap water filtered with a high-quality system such as a reverse osmosis rather than bottled water, which usually contains more microplastics. 3, don't heat food in plastic. Use glass or ceramic containers for microwaving or storing hot food. Heating plastic causes more microplastics to leach into your food. 4, choose natural fiber clothing and linens. Wear clothes and use bedding made from cotton, wool, or other natural fibers to reduce shedding of synthetic microfibers during laundry. 5, replace plastic kitchenware. Switch out your plastic cutting boards, utensils, and cookware for options made of wood, metal, or ceramic to minimize plastic fragments in your food. For a deep dive on different products and items you can use to minimize microplastic consumption, you can check the next video out here. Let me summarize what we've learned today and what it means for your health. Microplastics are everywhere, in the air you breathe, in the water you drink, and the food you eat. The average person consumes tens of thousands of these particles annually, with indoor air and bottled water being the most major sources of exposure. The health effects are real and serious. We now have direct evidence linking microplastics to increased risk of heart attack and stroke. These particles are accumulating in your brain, potentially contributing to neurodegeneration. They're affecting reproductive health in both men and women. And they're causing cellular damage throughout your body through oxidative stress and chronic inflammation. Children are at highest risk because they're exposed to higher concentrations and their developing bodies are more vulnerable to damage. The problem is getting worse. Plastic production continues to increase, and even if we stop making new plastic tomorrow, the plastic already in the environment will continue breaking down into microplastics for decades. But here's the empowering part. You have more control than you think. While you can't eliminate exposure completely, you can make meaningful reductions through simple changes like switching from bottled to filtered tap water, replacing plastic food containers with glass, and choosing natural fiber clothing, or being more mindful about heating plastic items. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress. Every plastic water bottle you don't drink, every synthetic garment you don't buy, and every time you choose glass over plastic, you're reducing your exposure and protecting your health and that of your loved ones. This is a marathon, not a sprint. Start with 1 or 2 changes that feel manageable, then gradually add more as they become habits. Your future self will thank you for taking action today. Remember, knowledge is power, but only when combined with action. You now have the knowledge. It's time to put it to work protecting yourself and your loved ones. What changes are you going to make first? Let me know in the comments below. And if this video opened your eyes to the microplastic threat, please share it with someone you care about. Together, we can raise awareness and make the changes needed to protect our health. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video where we'll dive into practical, step-by-step strategies for creating a lower plastic lifestyle that actually works in the real world.